And we're live.
Hey, look at that.
Thursday night fish talk. What's up, Halk?
What's going on, buddy?
Not much, man.
We're a little late today. We're 1 minute late, and we're sans our special guest. Everything was going smooth. 10 minutes before the start of this, we just jumped on to test all our settings, and we got Nino all situated, and then he had internet connection problems. He froze on our screen. So he's going to be rejoining. He's rebooting his computer. So it'll be like a regular show without a special guest until he's able to join.
He'll be on shortly. So get your questions ready. Post them up. We're going to have
We got one already.
Nice. Let's
you gotta bring them up though.
Here we go.
One.
Want to read it, John? Just because I got the camera in the way.
So it's Piggy Digger Fishing. And I lost a few big tog this week after being pulled into structure. What do you guys do in this case? Will they swim back out? I got a great story on this. My charter 2 days ago had the big fish of the day pull him into structure. And in his own words, a guy he used to work with taught him. I said to him, open your bail, give it some slack, stick it in the rod holder, grab another rod. And as he's doing that, apparently he hit the butt end of the rod twice before he put it in the before he opened the bail and then put it in the rod holder. And about literally a minute later, he's rigging up another rod. We look over and his rod is bending, booming, got it out, brought it up. I will tell you, I've lost many fish where I've been pulled in, and no amount of patience, no amount of anything has helped. Yeah. The day of the tournament that our special guest, his team won, last 40 minutes, John Sweeney hooked into a really big fish, pulled him into the structure. We kept it in that rod holder for half an hour.
It pulled John Sweeney into the structure himself?
It could have, given that Sweeney weighs about 17 ounces, standing 42 feet tall. But no, it took his the fish took his jig into the structure. It took his rig, actually. We were rig fishing. And he fished with another rod. We never saw that fish. We never got that rig back. We waited till the last possible moment. Then we tried to muscle him out when there was no time left, and we had to run back, and we broke off. So you win some of those, but I'll say my experience, you lose most of those.
All right. Well, it looks like our special guest is logged back in, so let's bring him up here. There he is.
What's up, guys?
What's going on, Nino?
What's up, Nino?
You guys doing?
Congrats, buddy.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, experience overall. To be honest with you, it's I'm still kind of taken back by it all, but a lot of fun. So
nice. Halkias, why don't you kind of let everybody know, what took place last weekend, and kind of give everybody the background story before we show some of the pictures.
Yeah, absolutely. So, every year in my neck of the woods here in the North Fork of Long Island, there's a restaurant in Greenport called Billy's by the Bay. And Billy was hosting his annual Blackfish tournament. This is the 5th year they've run it. And as I've done a few times, Nino reached out in advance and asked if I could register them. We went and registered them. There were 36 boats in the tournament. And I was fishing with Sweeney Doc and our good friend Todd Mann. Todd Mann had, I think, won the tournament the last 2 years. We won it the first year. Nino won it. Nino, you either won it the third year or the second year. You won it year 2.
Yeah, 22.
You won it year 2. Todd won it the last 2 years. And this year, with the most incredible Blackfish I've seen up close and personal, Nino and team, there it is, 18.51 on the scale. They won it. We got second and third, and our second and third place fish, to give you an idea of how monstrous this fish was, did not come close to equaling the weight of that fish. Our first place fish was 7.12 pounds, and our second place fish was like 6.8. So put those together, you have about 14 pounds. That fish weighed 4.5 pounds more than our second and third place fish in the tournament combined. So insane props to you, Nino. I do have one complaint, Nino.
No.
I do not approve of that team name you had. I think it was really inappropriate. I'll stop there.
All right, whose idea was it then? I guess you're trying to get yourself out of it, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I hear you. I hear you.
That's pretty awesome. Nino, so how much did you guys end up winning?
I think it was 6,500 total.
That's awesome.
It was definitely like something over $6,000 somewhere around there, which is unbelievable. I mean, that's a huge just that accomplishment alone, what just John explained. You know, like I said, we've been doing this long enough to know that the money doesn't matter in that type of situation. Like seeing what we've seen at the after party and people opening that cooler, that'll be a memory for me. Like the kids, like Garrett and
me.
Yeah,
Go back to that picture with the
I have to
cooler.
put the picture. I mean, that is so sick.
That is a big cooler. When we were all at the same table, Nino, Todd, myself, Doc, Sweeney, all the guys, Sean, Ronnie, who am I forget? Hurst, Josh Hurst. We were all at the same table. There was 8 of us at the table. When people wanted to see the fish and that cooler door was open, I wish I videotaped all those reactions. People were in stunned disbelief.
We really should have. Like, people were calling their friends
over and over.
Yeah, like you got to get here now and see this fish. It was just that to me, and all the years I've been fishing, all the years I've been tournament fishing, all the accolades, all the wins, like that to me took me back and just like I said, starting like what I was saying in the beginning. The kids open up the coolers, taking pictures with the fish. The families coming up. Like we've been fishing here forever, and we've never seen a fish like that. That to me, I still don't know where the heck that fish came from. To be honest with you, like I'm still like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm taken back by the sheer size of it. Like we've caught big fish, over 20 pounds, like last year. But in Cape May, deep fishing, totally different scenario. They grow big down there. They're closer to the stream. They eat all year. Up there, they have that. You guys have more of a intermediate, or let's say shorter feeding season. Like they don't feed as much as they do as they in Cape May and Ocean City, Maryland, and stuff like that. So to see that type of fish on that area,
that's a lifetime fish for us up here.
Absolutely.
I've heard of maybe 1 or 2 others like that up this way.
Yep.
In Maryland, that would be, the equivalent of maybe a 13-pounder up our way. But here, you don't hear about those fish. You just don't. That's incredible.
Yeah, we fished up there. I mean, as much as we travel and kind of go to places that we've never been to and kind of fish blind and all that, we've never we do fish quite a bit up in that area where you guys fish, and we fished a tournament like just like John said, multiple years, and we also fish Rhode Island a lot. So Rhode Island's really starting to become a big fish state too. I mean, almost damn near same as Cape May. The very next day, Robbie Taylor, who's probably one of the best captains, if not the best captain, from that area and the East Coast. So he caught a 22-pounder the very next day. So Rhode Island, Connecticut. I know Connecticut. Like I said, we've fished it a lot. And John could probably and you guys could probably kind of give some more insight on the size class. But when we won it, it was 8-9, I think. When you guys won it, it was probably a little bigger.
It was 8-9 when we won it.
Exactly.
And then last year when Todd won it, it was 9-8, I think. And the year before when they won it, might have been over 10, but it wasn't, it wasn't
11, 12. Yeah.
It wasn't a real, it's a monster for our waters.
Right.
But not. Think about that, Nino. 36 boats in this tournament. And most boats had 4 guys on the boat.
Yeah.
It's 120-ish people plus fishing, and there really were only 2 fish over 7 pounds in the whole tournament, ours and yours.
Yes.
So if we look at it that way, we kind of tied.
Yeah, and
Send that 3250 my way, Nino. Yeah, we accept.
I, and that, like I said, the two things that really stick out, obviously, is the what we talked about with the cooler and everybody opening the cooler at the party. But the other thing is too is, and I'm sure a lot of people on this feed want to hear about it. Is we've caught tons of fish, and this fish literally for the first half of the fight. We have, like I said, I'm super lucky to fish with some of the most seasoned anglers that you could possibly be gifted to have as a captain. And this particular tournament was they definitely weren't, by the wayside. But so the first half of the whole fight, we thought it was a bass. We thought it was a striped bass in the 30 class range, 30-inch range. The way it ran straight out. But then we're thinking, like, oh my God, we're only in 28, 25 foot of water. It could possibly be a top. So Sean Holton, the angler, which did an unbelievable job, definitely we knew, he was in for a fight, but knowing Sean, he does his homework. He's a bottom nerd just like the rest of us, and has his own boat, fishes, a lot of tournaments also, and does very well. It took him around the boat 3 times, and with me behind him, just moving. So we try and fish, with the current and stuff like that. We have our rig rods ready to go. So if the current gets too bad, we drop right in, kind of stuff. So we have line, rods and all the rod holders in the back. So immediately I seen the line go exit stage right. I'm right behind the outboard, so I'm literally throwing rods because there were like 4 of them back there. So I couldn't hold them all together. So I was just literally throwing them to the front of the boat, just so he can get by because the fish was going that fast. That's how quick he moved. I mean, damn near. I hate to use the analogy, but almost like a tuna, where you're just if you're not moving these lines, they're going to get either tangled or snapped. So then it ran him to the side where Ronnie fishes on the port, and that's where I first started seeing the actual telltale pops like you see for when you have a blackfish on. And then them guys still thought it was a bass. I was like, that's a top, and then it came back all the way back around to my side, and with me in tow with the net, sure enough, it came like
you stayed on spot lock, Nino.
Oh yeah, we definitely stay on spot. Yeah. I mean, we couldn't really do it. I really wanted to video it, but nobody could because everybody's moving rods, and it was that type of fight. So it was literally crazy. So it made one swipe towards the keel and then came back. That telltale where you see the first color, and I literally turned to Ronnie and said, "Oh my God, it's a tog and it's big. I'm not sure how big it is, but it's big." Did the circle one more time, circle another time, came up to the net. I went to go net him, and he seen the net and see you later, right back down to the bottom again. So the good thing is when I seen him at the net, I actually seen where he was hooked. And it was kind of a weird hook, where it was set. The hook was up like this on its the right side of his chin, which who knows what the heck happened when that fish went to bite. But anyway. When it came back up, it was a little bit more tired. Thankfully, the fish wasn't as green as it was, and we were able to get him right in the net, and the celebration started. It was just
and that was I presume on one of Josh's shakes.
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. Yeah, Josh does great stuff. The thing about Josh is he really is his attention to detail. We don't get some of the stuff we've had in the past, oh my God, it's, the paint's coming off as it hits your soft deck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, he, real humble guy that works out of his garage, it's all his stuff he gets, for us is some of the top notch stuff. And that includes all the fluke side of things. So, but anyway, 3 ounce, I forget exactly what the color was, but it was almost like a white crab color type of scenario. He's probably going to kill me for not remembering, but 3 ounce tog jig, and that's the thing. The thing we try and do, while we're developing our float plan or drop plan, as I call it, we try and find the best place with the current so we can fish jigs. That's our thing. We have everybody can have their whatever opinions. We think big fish come on jigs because it's a different position down on the bottom, stuff like that. We can debate that forever, but yeah, you can see from that picture there how the jig was actually hooked the other way, and not the lip the other way.
That's crazy, actually.
Up. Yeah. So, I'm not sure if it, and Sean could probably answer this a little bit better, but I'm not sure if he felt like a little tug, and then the second tug, Sean was already kind of like into his hook set kind of thing. But it is a weird, spot the way it hooked it. But that's what I seen when I was getting ready the first time, when it went back down to the bottom. So I knew he was in the good part of the top of the lip there. So it made me feel a little bit better. At that point, it's a terminal tackle and your line and your leader and stuff like that. But if it didn't, the good thing about where you guys fish up there, we come into the problem with us is, and that's why, and I'm sure all the Sharpies that fish down our way will be able to either chime in or know something about this, is we fish a lot of high structure, and it's all mostly like metal, tanks, rail cars, stuff like that. So it's very abrasive. So your leader is super important. If you want to go to 50, I would definitely recommend you go to 50. But, like you said, up there, we're comfortable with 40 just for the simple fact you have a little bit of, leisure with, the moss over glacial rocks and stuff like that. It's a little bit less of an issue as far as abrasion stuff. So, but yeah, man, it's pretty awesome experience. Like I said, I don't think we'll probably ever match, if we do, oh my God, it's unbelievable. But all four of us in general, we've been fishing alone. All of us been fishing enough to know that this is an accomplishment that we'll never forget for a very long time. And then to do it amongst like you guys, Halkias and, kind of hang out afterwards and talk shop. And, it was all part of it. It's all great stuff. And we appreciate it.
That's the thing, regardless of whether any of us had won. The great thing about these tournaments is that camaraderie afterwards, that brotherhood, hanging out. JT, you experienced it with the Fluke tournament.
Mm-hmm.
You got to see me play Mayor a little too, walking around and chatting everybody
Mayor
up.
of Fluke land.
Yeah. But highly encourage anyone, if you can fish one of the, especially a tournament like what Billy runs, it's hard to describe. I mean, if you can imagine, like if Don Rickles was Florida man, that's Billy. He's just a blue collar, out of his mind guy who insults everyone. Doesn't matter if you're young, old, boy, girl.
He does it with a big smile.
And he does it, and it's hysterical. And
it cracks me up. It's literally hilarious. And some of the stuff, and that's not including at the after party. Even on the radio when we're getting ready to do the shotgun start, I literally can't wait for what he's going to say. Like, get out of my way. He comes up with some stuff like it's like, we really love fishing that tournament. Billy and his team, like from the time we pulled in the parking lot, this was like the first time that we caught the fish pretty early, like 1:30. So we're like, at that point, if somebody has a 19-pounder, shake your hand, that's unbelievable.
You're not beating that fish again.
That's what I'm saying. So we're like, let's get in and clean everything up. Got in early. So we really got a chance to see, how Billy's team works and, the time and the hard work that goes into it, and especially that's his wife, right? Billy's wife that helps him out. Yeah. So I think she burned her hand, four times that day with the burners. And, so it's like a full court press effort on the whole tournament overall. It's very well run. It's really good. A lot of good people. We really found out how many good people are there just by everybody that came to the table asking what we caught it on, how was the fight, and the kids and the families and the moms and dad, everybody just coming up to us and just like enjoying the moment instead of being the shitty world that we're stuck in as far as like trolls on the internet, and it really just put fishing in perspective for me, because it like I said, and John and you and I talked about this a lot about how the internet is and how it affected fishing and how it is now. It's good in ways, but it's horrible in other ways. This was just like put your phone down, like kind of just hang out and watch everybody's face when they opened that cooler. That was the best part.
You know, the only thing I would question is why those parents allow those children near you, given the team name. But
At that point, I think I ripped it up and threw it in the truck. No, I'm kidding.
Let's talk a little bit about the area you were fishing. Obviously, we're not looking for you to tell us where you were, but was it an area that you guys had fished before? How did you find it? Was it kind of on a whim?
Yeah, it was on the Connecticut side. I always generally like, for whatever reason, I like the way the layout, the bottom layout there is. I have a pretty decent amount of data there from from past tournaments, or just we go up to just fun fish up there. Like we put in God, I can't off the top right out in that Niantic, but Groton. We put in at that ramp and fished that area a lot. Fishers area, Fishers, and then in front of Fishers and stuff like that. And we'll even kind of scoot up to the Catacomb and fish that. That's actually where we won the first tournament. Was that it was Center Rocks, but it's truly like if you bottom fish and you tog, it's an area up that way, starting from Connecticut all the way up to Rhode Island. And Rhode Island's like, I wish I was going this weekend. Like I wish we were leaving right now to go up there. But like I said, so Connecticut. There's a lot of really good series of up to like Black Point and then going into Fisher's Island that we kind of rest on and have some good stuff on. But this particular area just it was probably my 5th or 6th drop on my list, and a lot of it came from just basically finding the best area that has I'm not going to say like the current totally stopped, but enough to where you're not flying out the back and able to use jigs still. And that's kind of how I go about it. Like for my our first drop was literally like a bust. Like I anticipated the current to be in the 1.5 to 2 range, and it was like almost 3.5. So
yeah, flies.
Yeah. So whatever that was like. So I use I have a Coastmaster mat from Humminbird on the boat. That's kind of similar to the Navionics, all the mat products that are out there. But Humminbird did a really good job on this particular mat, and I just hop on. It gives me the exact area where I'm at, and I anticipate the current that way. Then while we're sitting there fishing, I'll go to my next drop and see where the current's at, and kind of anticipate like, all right, let's go now, at this time or whatever, and then go from there. And we'll just,
I'm gonna cut you off. And I know a lot of people. I know Duffmeister asked me this offline, and I see that somebody had asked, how do you decide where to fish? And you keep talking about currents, and I think that's something a lot of people don't pay attention to. And they're going to say, well, I checked the tide chart. Yeah, you check the tide chart. Guess what? Sometimes tides and currents are not synced up. They're rarely are they synced up.
There's also a full moon last weekend.
It was.
That's why
you start looking at current charts. That's something that gets overlooked. Current charts are going to be more predictive of what the actual current's going to be than a tide chart. When we're in Montauk, it might be 2.5 hours after the tide, so you'll see high tide at noon. So now you're thinking, okay, high tide, it's going to be outgoing at 12:01. It might not be outgoing till 2:30. You really need to start focusing on current charts and not just tide charts. If you are trying to figure out where do I fish, what's the, will I be able to jig, or will I need, 12 ounces of lead, 16 ounces of lead to hold?
Exactly. Yeah. And we don't even want to get to that point. We don't even want to get to the heavy lead, because I would say all of us, we can't stand rig fishing. Jigs are our thing, and that's kind of how we play the game. So I try and curtail. I take a little page out of my Fluken book, where I don't even look at, like, I use it. I use the current and the tide, just like you're talking about, charts as a guide. But when I get there is when I see everybody's lines in the water and myself. That's why it's always nice to have the captain fishing, because you can kind of, your first hand of, oh shit, we got to get out of here. You know what I mean? So what I think happens, and especially and JT, like you made a good point with the moon. This, and John knows this because he's fished the tournament enough. This tournament falls on pretty much on the supermoon every year, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, John. It's either in that vicinity or pretty close to it, right? So to win, to the accomplishments with this tournament with Todd and you guys and even us, like it's not an easy tournament. And then on top of that, Billy makes it a short tournament. So we don't leave the shotgun start till 8 o'clock, and we got to be back. We got to leave our spot at 2 to get back for weigh-ins at 3. So you got very little room to wiggle as far as like you can't stay like if it's a shitty current where everybody's lines are not in the strike zone, what I call the strike zone. You got to move. You got to go find where it's going. So it's hard to say like you pick a specific spot. Like some guys, and I think that's where the learning curve is like they're just going to wait it out. And if you wait it out during a tournament, you're pretty much
you're wasting time. You're missing the bite. Your odds of hitting that bite at that peak time is slim to none.
Exactly. And
how many fish? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's why another page out of my fluke book is that we have two setups for each person ready to go, a jig rig and a rig, right? So at any time, like if I say, hey man, we have to use a rig here, but I think they're here, like we're getting good action, right? So and then immediately all of a sudden, as soon as I know it's usually Josh, because I know he's definitely the jig guy. I'll watch over my shoulder, and as soon as he starts going to a jig, then I'll go to a jig. You know what I mean? Like when you kind of work your way around. But nobody says anything. It's just like that's how these guys are so like I said, we're all bottom nerds, and I don't have to say anything to anybody. They just do it, and I just kind of follow their lead, as it's going around.
So how many fish did you guys catch before that one?
What did I say? We had 12. Like I think we had 11 or 12 right around that and then that was at like at 1 o'clock. But we weren't like keeping the very 16s that are right on the button, like we were throwing them back. But like anything like above, like we have our own little 17-inch and above type of keeper thing we had. So but yeah, I think we had like 11 fish by that time, and then that was the 12th one. The big one, and that was at around 1 o'clock, 1:15, and then we just headed in from there. So,
it's awesome. We had a question here. Where's a good place to find current charts?
So, if you go on to Navionics, and you have the crosshair that when you're looking through the chart. So if you click on whatever area you want, that comes up with like you can mark your spot. Well, the weather side of that crosshair, you can click on that, and then it'll give you pretty much everything you need: tide, wind, current at that moment. So, like I said, I use a different, on the Humminbird side of things with the Coastmaster. But when I'm planning my, my drop list the day before, let's say during a week, I'll use Navionics.
And I'm going to just chime in there and just say I know a lot of us have Garmin electronics. I have Humminbird too. It's integrated into my trolling motor, my Minn Kota Quest Instinct, and I use my sonar on the Humminbird. But my Garmin, you hit info, tides, currents, nearby location, and on the Garmin it'll say, are you fishing between Plum Island and Gardner's Island?
Yep.
And it is dead accurate.
Yeah.
Like to the point where if it says that outgoing starts at 101, you will see the boat start moving the other way at 101. It is dead accurate, and you can check it day before, day after, 2 days after. So if you're at your boat, after a trip and you want to see tomorrow, what's the current going to be at this location, at that location? Super easy to do with the Garmin.
Yeah, I totally agree, John. And going back to what I said about that first spot, that was the only time ever that I had a different, like I showed up and I was like, oh shit. But I also, where I set up on the piece, it was kind of like an eddy. You know how you have that like break where you see.
We love fishing eddies, Nino. That's why a lot of times I'm on a piece all day, don't move, and we catch a ton of keepers.
Right.
And we never go over an ounce because we're in an eddy. Often overlooked part of this type of fishing. Now, granted, you're not maybe going to have those monster fish, but
right, I agree.
For catching keepers, a charter guy,
Right.
It's
Yeah,
not a bad thing to find eddies to fish.
and listen, sometimes the fish, you know, that are on the heavy current or in the heavy current, let's say, they get on the chew, man, because you got to think about it. There's, you know, if you look at Skinner's bottom video, like you could tell sometimes where that current's really ripping, and the fish are here, and you'll just see bait and crabs and coming right by them. So that's like dinner bell for them, you know. So I'm not saying that the heavy currents, like, you can't fish it. I'm just saying during the supermoon you can't fish it. You know what I mean? Like at the height of the supermoon, if you can hold with that, like, and you're happy with cranking up 18 ounces of lead. God bless you.
Yeah. God bless you.
Yeah. I'm not.
We just give a shout out to my boy Huey from Tackle Direct. What's up, Huey? Long time no talk.
Tackle Direct, that's down our way.
Yeah. I don't, Huey, you still work there? He can answer and leave that comment. He was there. We met him as a young kid. He won a subscriber contest like the second year of my channel, and he had to bring his dad up, David. Anyway, I digress. We're talking about your fish, not my subscriber contest from 6 years ago, Nino.
Let's talk a little bit about. So I'm assuming you guys were using white lager crabs. Is that correct?
Actually, we weren't.
Okay, tell us about it.
So we made a real valiant effort to try and have them, but with this time of the year, and listen, I know guys that grab them and head up to Rhode Island with them, and it's probably an advantage to a certain point. But I mean, this was a perfect example where we had greens, and I mean, time of the year definitely has a play in that too. But we couldn't. I mean, if I could, usually we'll have both. That's just how I am.
We had white leggers, JT. They definitely seemed to catch the bigger fish we caught, but we had I believe in this. Whenever I have white leggers on my trips, I'm a firm believer in you start with the greens. They have all that scent, they have all that juice, they get that aroma, that slick out, and then you switch to the whites. I'm probably not as convinced as some of the other and guys who are really a lot sharper at this than I am, I'll be honest, that it's going to make all that much of a difference. I think if there's an 8, I'm talking about what I would consider big fish. If there's an 8-pounder down there and I drop a green or a crab or a white right on top of them, but that's just me. Certainly guys with much better pedigrees, blackfish pedigrees than me will tell you white crabs make all the difference.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I got a bunch of buddies they love, hermits, Asians. Everybody has kind of a confidence.
Anything but a hermit.
I'm a green crab guy. It's just convenience. Yeah. It's easy. They're juicy. They stink.
Hermits bring every porgy and sea bass in a 20-mile vicinity to your boat. If I see somebody bring hermits on my boat, I'm throwing them overboard. Now, if it's January and there's nothing else around, go for it. But
greens are hardy too, which helps mostly because anybody that fishes with whites enough, and I mean, as you can see on my white and my beard, is probably that's from keeping those damn things alive, trying to keep them alive in this, especially this time of the year. This time of the year is absolutely, I literally lose, years of my life from them damn things. But anyway,
the percentage of dead ones when I get them in my pens are insane. Yeah, and for how much they cost over greens.
For sure. Yeah.
And we're paying, an insane amount this year for crabs. Like I have to rethink my pricing next year for TOG trips because apparently there's a shortage. And the company like L&L apparently is going up to like New Hampshire and Maine to get green crabs this year.
Yeah.
This is what we do.
Nino, I got a question for you, and I know a lot of people ask this all the time. Legs or no legs? I like cutting all the legs off. How are you guys rigging your crabs? People want to know.
I'll just give you my perspective. I mean, they're like everybody has their thing, right? But I normally go full crab through the bottom up, and then I just cut half of the legs off, just so I can. I'm a big proponent of like he's got to let you know he's there, right? So that'll give you the tap, and then. John, we talked about this last night. It's almost like the anticipated thump kind of thing. and then the thump, kind of. But they also could be biting different. Now, up in your guys' area, they're super aggressive. Down in our area, I mean, like I told you last night, John, we've caught 20-pound or between 14 and 16-pound fish that literally bite like tick, 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 and you got to swim on that tick, which is like.
Yeah, well, I shared the story too, Nina, where I was on a fish finder trip out of Jersey in I think December, and a couple people on the boat caught fish, and those were like the Jersey Sharpies, and I didn't understand. I'm feeling peck, 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 peck. No pull, no hard thump. I reel up, bait's gone, and that was happening all day. And you're right. It's completely different than what we see, which is. And my opinion only, where we fish, we are dealing with shallower water and tons and tons and tons of small fish, which is why, I know you mock the noodle rod, but I think that's where the noodle rod succeeds, because we have, and people don't understand this if maybe they fish other parts like Rhode Island or parts of Jersey or Maryland, we have to deal with all these little fish. I'm sure you guys felt it too. And you really need to be able to not set. You got to have the patience of job to just sit there and take those little taps, and you're going to lose sometimes, but wait for that right pull.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's basically what I was just going to say. And, and going back to my crew, I'm really fortunate to have, guys that are, that good at it. I mean, they literally, we'll sit there till they're blue in the face until they set the hook. Which you're looking at their rod while it's bouncing around, and you're like, set the hook, and they just know it's just they're that season. So, but yeah, going back to the crab, I know Ronnie loves half crab. Every time I look over, he's got a pile of half crabs, and he does. He's excellent. I'm not too sure about Josh. Josh kind of switches up, I think. I didn't really ask Sean. I think Sean might have had a whole or a half. He might have had a half for the big fish. But he can confirm. But yeah,
I'm a big half crab guy. I like all that orange sludge that's in there leaking out.
Yeah, and with half crab, if you don't mind, there it goes with experience again, right? If you don't mind, you got to pull up. Like, as soon as you feel your taps and that game's over, right? That one game, you got to pull up and put a new, fresh piece of bait on it. With a whole crab, you get a little bit. Sometimes I'll bring them up and they're not all the way crushed, and I'll just crush them again, and then there's more juice to come out, and I'll just send them back down again. But I'm a big full crab, even in Cape May, full crab all the time on the jig.
So Nino, you're gonna
has a different confidence thing, isn't it? It's like guys that like heavier jigs versus lighter, different rods, different types of crabs, how we cut the legs off even. It's
I got one better for you, JT, and I think Nino's going to disown me. Never talk to me again when I tell him this. I would say 85% of the time, I take the shell off, even when and it's mostly half crabs. And somebody said confidence, JT, might have been you, or I don't remember if it was you, Nino, but I have more confidence hooking the crab with the shell off. For whatever reason, I just feel like I'm screwing up hooking the crab not with a whole crab. I have no issues with a whole crab, but for some reason with a half crab, I feel like I catch less fish if I leave the shell on with the jig.
And I'm the opposite.
It right. I take the shell off 80%, 85% of the time.
Yeah, Joey takes the shell off, and I'm like, "What are you doing? You're wasting half of it." And I just take it. I hook it right through that first leg socket, just to the last one where it's sitting on the hook. But Joey, he rips every freaking shell off the crabs. He swears by that. So
yeah. And the moral of the story, when it's all said and done, and I'm sure you guys heard this before, it's what works for you, right? And there's no other species that there's so many variations that people do that you could be totally off the wall and kill it. We have a guy that we fished with. Ronnie fished with him more than me. I think he's got probably 7 20-pounders, and that's the honest to God truth. That's legit. He will fish a soup every time. And you guys probably don't really know like too much with the soup because they get caught up like they're just a bigger white crab. They're huge.
Yeah,
huge. Literally like that big.
Like a Jonah crab.
Like a Jonah crab, exactly. And he will fish that and just sit there and let him eat and let him eat and let him eat. And they're on thumps too. Like he just knows. Like, but Like I said,
Yeah.
he's
And just to the point that we're all making, Robert Storms very early said, you know, John, I know you're an advocate of light tackle, light line, but I find that a slightly stiffer rod works better for me. Absolutely, Robert. You got to do what you're comfortable with. When I publish my videos, I'm sharing with what works for me and what I've seen work for people, but I've also seen the opposite work. But again, well, a lot of what I do is dependent on the waters I'm fishing. I'm sure when I go up to Rhode Island, you're not getting 10-inch sea bass and little porgies and little blackfish attacking the bait nonstop. It's different. So there's a method and a madness to why I'm that light. It's not to show a rod bent in half and real, you know, drag screaming for YouTube content. It actually, for me, it makes all the difference. But if for you, a different feel on your rod works. I saw in our subscriber member contest for those folks that were on our trip last week from my channel, high hook on the boat was Craig Watkins, and he was using a Nexus with a jig, and it worked. I couldn't believe it. Hey,
Good luck for that. I would use
if
that.
it works for you, you got to stick with it.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, it's even like your hook set, John. I watched your last video when you were fishing by that spot. You know, your hook set's completely different than the way I do it. I mean, I watched you. You got bit and it was wham. You know, I'm kind of like, I get bit, I know it's there, I'll give it like half a reel as I'm pulling it up. It's everything. Everybody has their own way of doing it. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I tell the guys all the time, you're literally trying to play almost like hide and seek. You're trying to be a little sneaky bastard, you know, like, all right, I'm there, but I'm trying to be a crab, but I'm not, kind of thing. And they're so damn smart on things. You know, we all know how many curses and screams, and after you miss one, you know how it can be. So it's a great game, right? We all enjoy it. We're you know, more and more anglers are getting into it, which give or take, you know, it's either affecting the way the fishery is going or whatever, or spot lock. We can debate all that all you want, but getting back to what we've seen and what we witnessed afterwards, and just having, you know, no internet trolls, just everybody just having, you know, dinner, an award ceremony, and just getting back to the, you know, old school type of fishing where everybody's like high-fiving and great job. Never seen something like that before. You know,
I'll never forget that, Nino. The 50 plus people that opened that cooler, and everyone had that same, you know, like they look like Beaker from the Muppet Show.
I'm putting that picture back up, guys, not to block your faces.
I wish I videotaped. I'm going to do it now. I might even throw a beep, 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 beep in there.
It looks like a mutant tog. It's
no, you know what it looked like, Nino? If you saw it up close, it looked like a black drum. That's how.
Yes,
this doesn't do it justice. How wide it was.
We say that all the time in Cape May. When they get to a certain point of like 15 and above, that's exactly, they're a puppy drum. Like, you know, we have a drum fishery down in Cape May that, you know, anybody that's on the call on the feed that's, you know, from our area, we you know, you catch them up to 70, 80 pounds, but you know, the littler fish, or let's say the more juvenile fish, are in the 30-pound class. So they look almost just like that fish, just like Sean's fish right there. It's crazy.
That's crazy. I mean, look, even like the big knot in its head.
Yeah.
Look at that thing.
Yeah. So
crazy.
Yeah. You know, and Sean's doing the right thing. He's you know, understanding the experience and with the memory of it, and you know, he was at the taxidermist the next day, you know, getting it to the point of where measurements taken and stuff like that. So you know, he's going to have a great memory on his wall forever. So it's good stuff.
Here's a good question: how late? It's cut off, John. I can't see it up behind my.
Yeah,
camera.
how late in the season or at what water temperature does the fishing usually die off at shallower depths, circa 20-foot depths?
I would say in the 40, you know, like I know down our way, the fish start moving off, right? They'll be inshore, and as that water temperature gets closer to that 46, you know, 45 degree, you're going to have to go, you know, you got to send it. you know, we fish 130 feet, you know, sometimes even almost 140 feet in the middle of January. So that's, you know, and then there's also mixed, let's say, a debatable fact of, do the bigger fish stay out there and they're dominant to that wreck or native to that wreck? But then there's also like a migratory size test that move in from the inshore species or inshore grounds and then move off. But I know for a fact, they definitely, they progressively, or let's say the bite gets, it's steadier as you chase the water temperature as it gets colder. Up your guys' way, it might be a whole different animal, just because of the size of the class, and I'm not sure how the migration works up there too much. But generally,
I think some of the bigger fish start migrating deeper as that water temp drops, because there comes a point, usually in mid to late November, where the jigging spots don't produce as well, but the deeper spots do. And my presumption is, right, everything else is equal. The water temp's 51, 52. The smaller fish have no issue biting. The bigger ones don't have an issue biting deeper. Why wouldn't they bite shallower? So my presumption always was the bigger fish, or what you, I think, more aptly described it as the migratory fish, they'll push out a little deeper.
Yeah.
And then we're fishing more reefs and rock piles, Nino. And I know Todd and Sweeney and Doc got all mad at me because I kept saying reefs, but it's really boulder beds that we fish.
Yep.
And I don't know if those fish are there the whole time. I would presume they're not, because that shallow water in the winter obviously gets a lot colder than the deeper water.
Yep.
Same way in the spring, it gets warmer earlier than the deeper water.
And I think a lot of those bigger fish are also kind of resident fish. So, for instance, the Connecticut state record was caught, I think, back-to-back years. It was the same fish. It was somewhere around Groton. And the guy who caught it off the exact same spot. It was the exact same fish. You could tell by the markings. It was like 1.5 pounds or 2 pounds bigger the following year.
And it was like 22 pounds, right?
Yeah, it was something like that. And that fish was on the exact same spot the following year, which, and they're old fish. I mean, I think we had a couple questions that your fish there. I think somebody had asked how old you thought it was. I think that fish was probably 30 or 40 years old.
Yeah, I can't recall exactly all the details, but there was somebody down our way. I think he had a 20-pounder or 21 right on that area. It might have even been Tom Daffin that had the angler had a study done, and I think in that class it was like 24 years old.
I think Ken had his world record. There was an autopsy done, and there's probably a different term for it for fish. And it surprised me. It was, if I'm remembering correctly, it was in the low to mid 20s, and that was the world record. So I know some people have commented 30, 40 years old. I don't know enough about the ages, but if the world record was only 20 something, I don't think this one was 40.
Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting to find out. I'm sure it probably changes from area to area.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, they're super old fish. I mean, they're definitely a fish that has to be respected. And we talked about Rhode Island a lot. They've done a lot of great things up there. I know my buddy PJ Silva up there and Greg Vespi. They with their clubs and how they run tournaments up there. And they even went to the lengths. I mean, I think they got the regs either changed or adjusted just by the fishermen, doing what they think is right to protect the species. They're doing awesome things. I wish everybody would kind of follow along with that. We have a general rule. My boat, anything over 8 pounds, we throw back. Even 7 pounds for that matter, depending on the day we're having. But like I said, it's definitely with that age that you're talking about, JT, in that 20 to 25 year range. I mean, you really have to respect the fish, and look, and us three, we know. I don't know too much. Like JT, looked like he had a pretty decent fluke year. So I don't know if you're in our category, but I mean it. And John, you had some nice fish, but we've had probably in the 30 some years I've been fishing, the fluke season. I can't. I'm actually upset to even talk about it because you guys know how much we're fluke guys at heart. it was the toughest season that I know I've ever experienced. So, and then with the rest of the species too, like, there's so much pressure on the tog now that it's because it's the thing to do, and the sea bass seasons that are all chopped up within whatever state that you're from, which is absolutely ridiculous to me. That would take a little bit of pressure off, I think, if they had a steady, consistent season throughout all the states. But
I tell you what's going to save tog, Nino, the fact that draggers really can't get them like they can fluke, and the fact that there's so many fertile places for these tog. There's so many places. Like I don't know if I talked to you about it, Nino. I think JT, I talked to you that I made a big effort this year to find different spots on avionics, and every spot we checked had tog, and nobody.
There's so many fish.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah, everybody really, honestly, that is either on this feed or it's listening, or you really have to get up to that area and above, like up the Rhode Island, because if you're a true, you really like tog fishing, I mean, it's just dropping real. Just think about your best sea bass trip, and it's tog instead of sea bass. That's how it's kind of like the equivalent. It's just constant action. It's really good. Throughout the tides. I mean, I love fishing up there. I wish I could fish up there every week.
Here's the question. I'll let you guys answer this. What's the appropriate distance when anchoring next to someone or spot lock?
Yeah, he can answer that. That's the the guy we talked about, John. So.
I listen. I try to respect if I can scream to talk to you, I think I'm far enough. Look, I'm a big believer in building the bite, unless I'm really married to a spot. So I try to get to the spot first. But, if you're not going to swing into somebody, I think you're okay. I don't mind when people come up next to me. I know somebody on my charter 2 days ago pulled up where we were having a conversation. It didn't bother me one bit.
Yeah. Go ahead,
I get it every week, literally throughout fluke season, any tournament. I got guys right next to me on, and I'll just be like, "Hey, man, how you catching?" Stuff like that. So,
fluke season to me is completely different. It drives me nuts. John, you've heard me screaming on the phone about people pulling up on my.
Let me tell you a quick story. I think we might have. I don't think we've talked about it on any of the live streams. I did a trip, one of the trips where if you watch the Skinner videos, you'll know that I lost 2 GoPros on 2 trips in a row. One of them was on the fish finder out of Captree. It was my first time ever fishing Captree, and we were fluke fishing. It was either late September or early October. I could not believe how these party boats were setting up on top of private boats. When I tell you we were feet apart from smaller boats, and smaller boats were all, I will never think anyone's too close to me after experiencing that. And anybody who's on this chat that's ever fished Captree, please jump in and say, yes, that's normal over there. I couldn't believe it, but everybody on the boat was like, no, that's what they do here. It was incredible. I never experienced anything like that.
Fluke fishing to me, I don't like when people are close to me at all, especially, like you guys know, like when you're fishing a tiny little spot and your drift is so important where you're setting up and drifting on it or spot locking on it. Tog is a different ballgame. I look at it like I'm not going to get super close to anybody, but if you're just fishing on top of a hump and there's a particular boulder that I want to fish, as long as I'm not bumping into your boat, I'm sitting on it because I know you're not fishing it. To me, it's especially up and down our coast here where, there's a lot of spots that you can catch fish, but there's not a lot of spots where you're going to catch big numbers of fish. And, I'll be courteous and stuff like that, but I'll say, hey, there's a boulder over here that I want to fish. And maybe it's, 20 feet from you. The spot's over at Southwest Reef in Clinton. It's literally boat on top of boat on top of boat on top.
I've seen that too. We used to go there with Doc. It
could be 100 boats.
Literally 10 feet apart. I'm not exaggerating. We used to fish Clinton a lot before we really got dialed into the light tackle, because that's another place where the current rips.
And honestly, I think on a spot like that, having a bunch of bait floating around in the water is a good thing. I think you start attracting the schools of fish, but it's kind of one of those things. It's like I remember back in my old bass fishing days in a tournament, if you had a guy going down a mile long stretch of shoreline and there was 2 logs that I wanted to fish out of that, I was pulling up on it. I didn't care if I was cutting you off because I wanted to fish those 2 logs, and you're just fishing down the bank. So I kind of look at it like that. So it's tough. Let's see. You got any more questions here? I think that's about it. Well, this was a good show. Thanks a lot, Nino, for coming on.
Thanks for the invite, man. I really appreciate it. Okay.
You guys, congratulations again. That was badass. It's so amazing.
Cool.
Absolutely. Congrats, buddy.
Thanks.
And JT, for our Patreon and YouTube members, we have our Sunday chat.
We'll be here Sunday at 7.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll bring Nino back on again.
Yeah. Did everyone, thanks for joining. Bid you guys adieu. I'm up at 4:30 for a charter. So
good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, we'll see the members on Sunday. We'll see the rest of you in 2 weeks. Take care, guys.
Take it easy.